What's up, you guys? Welcome to my complete, thorough, and extremely informative Lost Ark guide. This video is a special one. It's going to be a long one, but it will aim to help you on your Lost Ark journey. I've been having a lot of people coming back into my stream over the past couple of weeks because we have so many new player events going on right now, and they want to know the best way to approach the game or how to get back into the game. So in this video, I'll be covering almost everything from both a new player perspective as well as a returning player perspective to better inform you on how you can get caught up to speed. Everything that I talk about in this video will be listed down below in the description box, and you can also find timestamps listed below if you want to skip around, depending on your overall knowledge of the game. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and I hope you enjoy. Now, before we get into this video, I want to give you guys some information on where you can find information regarding the game. Now, like most games, you can find YouTube videos like this one to kind of better inform you on different aspects of the game that you're playing. But for Lost Ark, we have two major websites. One being Lost Ark Nexus, that is run by Civo, the person that asked me to make this video. And on Lost Ark Nexus, you can find a lot of useful information regarding Tier 4. I'm right here on the page, this bald man. No, but you can find a lot of useful information regarding different classes. That's mostly what I'd recommend Lost Ark Nexus for, because it has community written guides for almost every class in the game. And this is a great place to start if you're trying to learn your rotation, your engravings, gems, builds, all of that stuff you can find on Lost Ark Nexus, as well as additional other guides that might link you to max roll, and then maybe some other further systems in the game. If you're a little lost or confused, you can find a lot of that on Lost Ark Nexus. In addition to, you can also find on max roll. Okay, maxroll.com has literally a guide for everything. Namely, a lot of what we'll be talking about in this video is going to be this beginner guide. So if you miss anything in this video, or you want a written format really of this video, you can find it in the beginner guide. But it will also have resources for just every other system in the game, whether it be leveling, card sets, runes, guilds, gems. Everything is here. It can be a little overwhelming, but I would use this as a reference for additional info if I don't cover it in today's video. Okay. So you're going to hop into the game and you're going to be staring at this screen. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm starting on a new server and a new region to better simulate what you might see as a new player or a returnee player. So first thing you have to understand are regions. The game is split currently into 3 regions. We are hoping for a region merge between NA East and NA West. So maybe by the time you're watching this video, there'll be 2 regions. But one thing to keep in mind when it comes to the regions, you cannot play or trade with other players from different regions. Servers you can, but regions you cannot. So if you roll on NA West, you cannot play with people on NA East. I currently live in California, but I play on NA East because it's a bit more populated, but we are hoping for a region merge. And if you're from EU, Central Europe, you're just gonna roll on Central Europe. So for the sake of this video, I'm gonna roll on Genea. And here I am. Here we are at the character creation screen. Again, I'm on a new region, a new server to better simulate what you will see as a new player or maybe a returnee player. Now, during a previous event, I actually made an Aeromancer. So you might have a character on this screen if you played the game in the past. With that being said, we currently have a lot of events going on in the game, and I will walk you through a lot of those. Now, for the sake of this video, guys, I'm going to create a new character. And when you do that, you will encounter this screen if your account status is trusted in Lost Ark. In order to get trusted, you have to play the game for a random period of time, and then you will at some point get trusted, and you will see a screen similar to this, meaning you have a power pass available. You can create a character in power pass mode, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to commit to the power pass. This is a boost to your character. Currently, will push your character all the way to 1520. If that number sounds weird to you or overwhelming, don't worry about it. We're just going to create a new character. We can go back and use the pass later. And then now you're going to encounter all of the classes available to you in the game. You don't have to unlock them. They're all available out the gate. One thing to note here is that when you are creating a character, there are 2 class archetypes that you really have to keep in mind. There is the DPS class archetype, and there is the support class archetype. We don't really have a tank. We have a gun lancer, but that doesn't really exist in this game. But there are support classes, and there are our DPS classes. The supports being Artist, Bard, and Paladin. But you have 3 options at your disposal if you want to play a support. One thing to note though is if you do play a support and you are planning to do solo raids, I would really not recommend making a support unless you have aspirations of doing more group content. Not that you can't clear the content as a support, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense if you're just going to be playing a support and then playing solo, unless you really want to play it, because you're just going to be shielding yourself and it's kind of counterintuitive. You'll probably have an easier time playing solo as a DPS player. But if you want to play in a group, go for it. A support is a fantastic option. Other than that, you have a ton of DPS classes to choose from. Kind of have at it. Pick which one that looks best to you. Check out some tier lists. And yeah, let's continue. Now for this video, I'm going to be making a mage because I've never made one before, specifically a sorceress. One thing I do want to show you though is that although you have the character customizer on the right side of your screen, you can use some of these preset options that look pretty ugly. We do have a lot of presets available to you in the Lost Ark Discord that I will have shared down below, and you can actually go through other player creations, download them yourselves, and import them into the game. The instructions on how to do that, it's super easy to do, is in the pinned comments. Again, all of this will be linked down below, and you're going to download one of these, go through your files, and you'll just simply drag the download right into the file, and you won't have to do anything. Once you do that, you'll just go zone back out, reload back into the character creator, and it should be right there under one of these saved presets. So there we go. I've looked pretty ugly, but that's fine. All right, so we did a little bit of extra customization because I didn't like the preset that I downloaded, and that's something that you can do as well. We're gonna name our character Mewd. Oh shit! So we're gonna go ahead and create our character, and at this point you can launch the game or you can choose to use that power pass that the game has provided you. Again, you might have other power passes from previous events that may have not expired, but the current one goes up to Volvis. If for whatever reason you do want to purchase one of these because you want to skip the MSQ or get to a certain item level, you can do that, but we are going to be using our event Volvis power pass. Now, depending on the class that you pick, you'll be staring at this screen after a few cutscenes, and it's at this point you're going to pick which class you want to play. And you cannot change it after this, so make sure you decide or choose wisely. I'll be picking the Sword class. Okay, one thing that I highly recommend if you can is I would skip the prologue. It will show you some of the things and how the game works, but you guys are probably going to skip that. So just skip all these. The items aren't really worth it. You can always go back and do these later if you want, but we're going to start our adventure and skip past all of this nonsense. All right. So here we go. Chapter 2. Navigating the UI. Starting out, all of these alerts are on your screen. You're probably going to be a little overwhelmed. Now, depending on what power pass you use, which is essentially just a boost feature in the game, it just boosts you to a certain part of the story and item level, you'll end up in a different town. Again, if you use like the Punica pass, you'll end up in Punica. We use the Volvis pass that was provided to us for free, so we ended up in Volvis. This is a screen that you will see as a new player jumping into Lost Ark or returnee player. First things first, guys, just open up the inventory and you're gonna have some runes there for you. Just right click on all of these runes. These you'll understand later. And then you're gonna have some of these like mounts. Just quickly go through these. Even if you already have them, open the chests up, right click on them. And we're just cleaning out our inventory so we don't get overwhelmed. Okay, so your inventory might look something like this. After you right click all of the items, you'll have a gem chest and a few other things. You can just put these away in your storage by pressing Alt P, and you can just kind of drag these things into your storage for now. Don't worry about them. You can keep these potions in your bag and you'll have something like this. This is going to be your gear or your armor. Depending on the class that you pick is the set that you will select. However, don't worry, you can change this set freely later. So if you pick the wrong one, it's not the end of the world. You will be changing through sets pretty often in this game. But for this class, I'll be picking Nightmare, and I'll open up my chest. And I'm going to right click and equip all of this gear and these accessories. You should be left with the stone and some green gear. You can also press this little sort items tab and it'll kind of sort everything together. And you should, if using the Voltus pass, end up at 1520 item level. Okay, so now that we have all of our gear equipped, we're gonna scrap this green armor because it's absolutely trash. We don't want it. We're gonna press this little dismantle button. This box should open up. You can right click to move them over and just press dismantle, and we'll have some junk that we can sell later at the vendor. If your HP is low and you hear it flashing in your ear, like the sound, it's super annoying. Just use one of these potions. You'll go to full HP and it'll stop that noise. Now, with that being said, I quickly want to go over kind of what's on your screen here and talk about some of the events and what to follow. So in Lost Ark, if you see a red dot, it probably means it wants you to look at this tab. The main thing that you want to note are the ones in the top left and then also the ones on the right by the mini map. So first thing is everything on the right by this mini map is usually an event that is going on in the game. So we have the Arcasia Tour event, we have the event shop, we have the Arc Pass, we have the Hyper Express event, and then we also have some engraving support event that's pretty much a permanent feature in the game. So without being overwhelmed, let's go through each one of these really quickly. The first one is the Arcasia Tour event. To summarize this, I'll go through it later on. This is how you're going to catch up in all of the horizontal content that you might have missed as a new player. Maybe you played the game a long time ago and you did a lot of this early on by sailing around the game and getting runes or songs and things like that. Again, I'm on a new account, so this would be huge for me. This is a way to fast track a ton of rewards and progress by just doing a few simple quests. This could probably take you an hour as a brand new player, maybe a little bit more, and you're going to get a bunch of rewards and runes that you're missing, saving you weeks and weeks and weeks of farming really quickly. We also have the event shop. As I mentioned earlier, there's always an event shop that exists in the game. This is something that you will earn tokens by doing regular daily content or the daily event that takes place, the Maharaka event. This, again, depending on when you're watching this video, there's always a different event going on. You will earn tokens that you can come just by clicking this little event shop, and you can trade these tokens in for different materials that you may need when trying to accelerate your character's item level. Okay, we have the Arc Pass event that is currently going on. This is essentially just a battle pass that exists in the game. There's the free track, there is the paid track, and then the super premium paid track, which just gives you a skin. You don't have to buy it at all. It's decent value if you buy the basic level one, but for just playing the game, you'll get some additional materials as you level up and do some of the missions if you want, but it's essentially just a battle pass. The main juice, the main event that we currently have going on is the Super Makoko Express event. This is something that only happens every couple of months. A lot of players wait for this event, and after a couple of these events, this is what's going to help you kind of get up to speed in the game. It essentially accelerates your progress, your honing, and rewards you for reaching different item level thresholds. It gives you a ton of materials, a bunch of mats, cards. It's a lot of value, okay? And then you will select one of your characters to start the event on. This event works from 1520 to 1620, and it goes all the way from July 17th to September 25th, which we believe is the release date for tier 4, and I'm kind of assuming there will be another Super Makoko Express after this one, so you'll have two back-to-back. So right now is a great time, I would say, if you're returning to the game or you're a new player, to take advantage of these back-to-back events, because again, guys, they're pretty rare. They're a ton of value. This is something similar you see in other games like MapleStory. It's a burning event, or like, I don't know if Black Desert has anything similar, but you know, the seasonal servers, it's better than that for sure. Okay, another thing that you might see on your screen is a new system. It's called the growth missions. These are essentially like guide quests that reward you for playing the game, and they try to teach you systems about the game. So it tells you to open your inventory and, you know, check out the gear chests, etc. And you can skip these missions if you want. They'll also reward you with like different things. It's telling me to now press Alt Q into the content list and look at this menu and try a chaos dungeon. So you can follow this for some additional rewards. It's pretty decent actually in materials if you do this. We used to have a different system that was a little bit too much all in your face all at once. But again, these are new player-based rewards for just kind of exploring the game. At the top left, you will see daily playtime rewards. This is just basically what it says it is. It rewards you for being logged into the game, and every couple of minutes or 15 minutes you're logged in the game, you get rewarded with different things. Silver, you'll learn about that later, battle items, more materials, and some of those event tokens that we talked about as well. You can claim all of these and keep them in your inventory for now. Another thing is you have your daily login track. Similar to some things you've seen on mobile games, every day you log into the game, you get an item to claim. You'll have a returning player attendance event as well as the regular login attendance event. These materials are actually super useful. You'll have things like tripods, fions, and other things that are worth grabbing. So if it's in your benefit to log in the game, you can and claim those rewards there. The last thing is going to be your product inventory. Now, I've claimed a lot of these rewards on a different region, but you might have a ton of stuff here. I would claim all of these. People will tell you different things, but you're going to need some of the battle items that come from here, and you're far away from tier 4, so I would actually claim all of these, and then your inventory will be filled up with stuff. Now, I'm going to have a link down to the beginner guide down below that will walk you through on how to organize your inventory via different settings. That will be extremely useful as you play the game. It will take you about an hour to set up, and I know that could seem a bit daunting, but that's just to avoid any additional inventory bloat and how to like dismantle items a little bit more easily. So that again will be linked down below if you want to just figure out what's going on with your inventory and how to organize a lot of different stuff. The last thing that you'll notice is you'll probably have some purple guide quests that appear on the map. It might be on the right side of your screen. You can do these. Again, this is very similar to the growth missions. It just explains to you different things about the game. It might introduce your stronghold to you. It might introduce to you like different activities that exist in the game, and you'll see them on your mini map as well. So again, if you're just kind of bored, you can go through some of these purple quests. They're super simple. They don't do the greatest job of explaining what things are, but it will introduce you to various systems, or it will unlock things for you in the game. You might not be able to enter in a Legion raid before you do the Legion raid guide quest. You talk to an NPC. He shows you where Legion raids are on the map, and then that's simply it. You're able then now to enter that piece of content. So don't ignore the purple quests, do them. And then again, your growth missions will also introduce you to different activities as well and reward you for doing them. Okay, so hopefully at this point, you are a little bit better off with your organized inventory. You've placed some of the things in your Alt P storage, your pet storage, your personal storage, material boxes. You're like, I don't know what these do yet. Don't worry about those. You can just place them in the storage and you can access them later when you do need them. We're going to start moving on to setting up our class, the class that you picked or one of the alts that you may have. And again, you can skip past this if you already know how a lot of this works. Depending on whether you're using the event or not on this character, the event itself, the Super Makoko Express event, does a really good job of setting up your character almost for you, depending on the engraving you are going to be playing. Okay. But again, if you are using the event, you can select it on the class. If you decide that you want to play this class, this is something that you can't really change later on. So make sure you choose the right class. And if I start the event on this class, you're going to see a screen like this. After setting a style, you can use the Express. Setting a style just means which build do you want to play, and it will actually set up everything for you. It will give you your skill loadout. It will set up your accessories for you. It will give you your gems for you, and it will recommend those engravings for you as well. You can change these. Sometimes it's not super accurate to like how everyone is playing in the game, but it will do a good enough job to start out with, and you can always change these and go look at guides again on Lost Ark Nexus to better fine tune your build. But for this video, I'll be playing Igniter Sorceress, and I'm just going to use what it offers me here. I'm going to press auto apply, and then boom, I'm set up. The game auto equips all of the gems for me. It gives me my engravings, and it gives me all of my skills as well, which is pretty sick. Now, with that being said, I'm going to quickly go over, for the new players out there, all of the little power systems in terms of like what you're going to be getting when you select that character, and just quickly like what makes your character. So you have your gear, and on your gear, you're going to have this huge sheet, but realistically, all that matters on your gear is the item level of your gear gear that you can see at the top. This is plus 13, plus 14, plus 15, plus 16, plus 17. As your plus on your gear goes up at the top, the item level of that gear goes up. You then underneath it have quality. This just determines how much HP your gear pretty much has. I wouldn't worry about that too much, but we will go dabble with that a little bit. And then as we come down, you can see the set bonus level in the middle there. This is going to determine the play style of your class quite a bit, depending on the gear set that we have. So a lot of MMOs that you've played in the past probably have gear sets. Nightmare is the one that we're actually using. And then there's set bonuses for 2 set piece bonus if you're wearing 4 piece of this Nightmare. And then if we're wearing 6 piece, you also get a different set bonus, like an additional effect. So obviously you kind of usually want to wear the full set, and that is really what consists of your armor: the item level of the armor, the quality of the armor, and then the set bonus of the armor. Okay, another thing that's going to be on your character sheet is going to be your stats. Every build and class are going to have different stats. The main stats in this game that people actually use is going to be crit, spec, swiftness, and honestly that's pretty much it. I mean, there are some weird builds with endurance, expertise, and domination, but overall the main stats that you will be using are their crit, spec, or swift. And these stats are derived from your accessories currently in the game. In tier 3, different accessories will offer, depending on the quality, a certain amount of stats. So the higher the quality, the higher the stats on that piece. And earrings are going to be capped at 300 of a specific stat. Rings are going to be capped at 200, and necklaces are going to be capped at 500. One thing to note also is that necks will have 2 different stats on them, whereas earrings and rings only have 1. Also, for some reason, the accessories that you get for just logging in the game and doing the event are going to be 100 quality, but they're not actually 100 quality. As I mentioned, rings can go up to 200. You can see we're at 100 quality. It's orange, and it only goes up to 188. Regardless of the fact, these are still fine to use for now, and that's where you're going to get your stats from as a new player. And to follow up on your stats, pets in Lost Ark actually give you stat benefits that you can freely change. You will always use a HP pet buff and then a stat of your choice. So almost always you're going to pick 5% max HP, and then you're going to choose your stat buff. Depending on the class that you're playing is going to depend on what stat dominant, or the dominant stat that you are using. So if it's spec, crit, or swift, remember those are the main 3 that we talked about. If spec, as I'm a Sork, is my dominant stat, I'm going to just change that and make that my pet of choice, right? This gives me 10% benefit to my spec stat. So if I go now and I summon my rabbit by pressing Alt P and then summoning the rabbit, you can see that I've gained 10% spec, which is huge. It is a lot. So make sure you have the right pet, the right stat, and we're going to do big damn. The final and last thing that you will see on this character sheet is going to be your ability stone. This system sucks. Well, it did suck until we got our free 5x3 engraving support. In the past, you'd have to cut these stones. Basically, these stones would have engraving effects on them, and you had to play this mini game to get more of the effect on your engraving. You'd want to get 7 points of the cursed doll, if that makes sense. You see there's 15 total points. Now you don't got to do any of that stuff, but you are still going to want to cut this stone and unlock the system. So come over here for this ability stone, find the purple guide quest in your town, press Shift G to skip all this nonsense because you don't care. Talk to her, do the Shift G, finish the quest, complete it, bada bing, bada boom, you know, we're done. And it will show you how to cut a stone. It will give you a guide on this, but the stone that you have, just cut it because it literally doesn't matter. Why? Because you're using the engraving support, and even if I have all these negatives right here, it's not going to matter. That will be something that's on your character sheet right here. I'm going to equip it, and even though it has all these negatives on there, you're not going to see it right there. Okay, later on when you do decide to cut your own stone, this is going to be part of making this engraving build. You can look into that a little bit later. I wouldn't even worry about this, but you can find this at the ability stone cutter vendor, unlock the quest, and it'll walk you through on how to cut a stone. From there, we have our engravings, which I talked about earlier. This is just essentially what makes your build. I guess engravings to be referred to as like your spec or maybe your talent tree. A lot of this is actually changing kind of in tier 4 in the new tier, but this is really what can makes your build, right? Usually your build consists of your engravings, and each engraving has a different effect. You have your class class engraving, as I mentioned earlier. If you press Alt-I, you can actually see all of the engravings in the game. And then you have your class ones as well. So unique to the class, general engravings that everybody can use. So you'll use one class engraving traditionally, and then you'll use the remaining on general engravings. Every class has 2 class engravings. This alters the playstyle of your class. So I'm playing Sorceress. I have a Reflux build and an Igniter build. The Igniter build is going to be something that's a little bit more burst heavy, a little bit less spammy, whereas Reflux is a more mobile, constant damage build. We recently got something placed into the game called 5x3 engraving support. This was previously found through only the event itself, which is why people like the Super Makoko Express event so much. It basically gave you a free build without having to adjust any of your accessories at all. Every character that's in tier 3 content, so anything that's past Punica, which is pretty much the entire game, gets a free 5x3 setup, and it's interchangeable whenever you want to. So I'm just going to quickly throw something together. I have no idea if this is really the right build, but I'm just throwing it on there to show you what it is. And I'm going to toggle support. I drag them up, and now I have a complete 5x3 build already. From there, we have gems. Gems are something you've probably seen in a ton of different MMOs. Gems in this game, you slot them in. Gems actually used to slot into your rings back in the day, believe it or not. I think that's what it was. It was super weird. Now, gems just go into their gem tab, and these, all that they do is they either reduce the cooldown of a specific skill or they increase the damage of a specific skill. So you have cooldown gems and you have damage gems, and your build will consist. Again, you can find all of this on your class guide of how many damage gems you want, how many cooldown gems you want, what gems you want for different skills. And you can access this all by just opening up your pet. There's a gem merchant also in every town, but you can access it right here. You can change these gems to whatever you want. You'll have a ton of different gems at your disposal for the event, for logging in as a new player, and then also there's vendors that will give you free gems as well, and you can change these as you need to. Finally, we have the beloved card system. Everybody loves cards in Lost Ark. Cards are a horizontal like power progression system that is shared across your entire account on that specific region, guys. So as you play the game, there are different activities that will reward you with cards, and cards actually make up a pretty big portion of your damage. Now, as a new player, you're going to be given a lot of different cards that you can use at your disposal for different sets. Simply, you'll get some cards when playing the game. You might have some cards in your inventory and you will right click to read them. But also, when you press Alt-C, one thing that I highly recommend is make sure you go to the Enhanced tab and you auto save. You have these options checked. That way, when you open a card pack, you get some cards, it will auto read them and store them for you in your card catalog. Now, if you run out of card space, you can use blue crystals, which is the gold conversion currency, to open up more slots. But for now, you can always place them in your storage and come back to them later. I do recommend reading cards as you get them because it is going to be useful to you because they provide small stat bonuses, but also allow for you to create sets. If you're a new player, there's a couple of card sets that you're looking to, I guess, use. One of them being Deep Dive. The idea here is that you get all of the cards, or at least 6 from the card set, and as you rake them up, they will give you additional damage. There's also another popular card set called Light of Salvation, and this one is the meta standard, and over time, you'll be working at acquiring some of these cards. The event itself will give you a lot of these cards. I wouldn't worry about this too much. Don't get overwhelmed. I'm just walking you through each system, but cards are a big part of your overall damage, and again, it's an account-wide system. Now, when you're making your build, or you are looking at a guide, or the game just gave you one of these builds, you're going to look at your character skill sheet, which is just K, and this is where, you know, these are the skills that we have gems on, etc. This is the skills that are on our bar. If you click the top left here, it's going to organize the skills based on what's on our bar, and on the right, you'll have these runes, and you'll see in the build guide, you know, if you're looking at Lost Ark Nexus, which skill should have which rune. And all you have to do is, and these runes, just by the way, they give you casting speed, so it's like haste on skill usage. Some of them are like, you know, reduced mana cost, give you specialty meter gain on your actual skills, and you're just going to save these there. Now, if you don't see any of the runes that you need that are recommended in the guide, two things that you can do about that. Again, you will unlock these runes by playing the game. You can press Alt D and you can search where you get the rune. So if I'm looking for a wealth rune, I can just type in wealth and I'll search, and there's all of the wealth runes in the game, and it'll tell you kind of how you get them or where they come from. However, as mentioned earlier in the video, there was that thing that I was going through called the Arcasia Tour. So back in the day, we had to go do all of these different quests to unlock these various runes. Now you just get pretty much nearly all of them if you just complete the Arcasia Tour. So this is something that I would actually prioritize early on in the game. If you're not doing any of the raids and you're done, you know, trying Chaos Engine Guardians, like, yo, what should I do in my free time? Knocking this out to acquire a lot of the things that you need, I highly recommend doing. I think this would be super beneficial for you to do. It gives you skill point potions, but a lot of those runes that you're going to need. And again, runes, you just slot in your individual skills and they enhance those skills. Another thing that you're going to see on your combat skills sheet is the skills themselves, the runes that we just talked about, but also these things right here are called tripods. If you've ever played an MMO, you kind of have like skill trees, and that's all that these are. As you level up a skill, you unlock the ability to kind of spec it out. So at 4 points, you unlock the first row of the skill, 7, you unlock the second row, and at level 10, you unlock the final row. Going above level 10 is just going to give you bonus damage on that skill depending on your combat level in the bottom left corner. And then you have these levels on your actual tripods. When you're playing through the event, there are a ton of sources for tripod enhancers, right? Pretty much guaranteed ways to level up your tripods. In the guide that you're reading, it will even give you usually a list of skills to enhance or level up first, which tripods are the most important. And one thing to know more than anything else that I would say, you can see here on the screen, for just reaching the first 1540 item level, you will receive wishful amulets. That's 3 level 5 tripod boosters. It will put that tripod immediately at the max level of 5. You might even have some free level 4s lying around. Don't do this the manual way. The only way to really do this is just use these wishful amulets or these amulets to level up your actual tripods. These things are the biggest damage boosters almost of anything in the game. So if you feel like you're not doing any damage and you're wondering what's going on, make sure you have your tripods. All right, are you feeling overwhelmed yet? Good, because now that we have our character sheet built, we've got all of our runes on our character, we got our stats figured out, everything's all set up and good to go, right? Well, you're probably thinking, do I have to adjust these for different pieces of content, or can I save these as like a preset? We actually have a preset builder, a mass preset builder, by pressing Alt E. And you can name a preset like raid at the top left. And then you can name each individual loadout for the specific content you're doing. So I can go simply here and I can name this skill loadout. Again, it's always this little like symbol like with a pencil and a piece of paper. We're going to call this raid. And then I'm going to go to my character sheet here and call this raid. And then my gem loadout, we can go to this and press raid. So you can go to each thing, and even our card layout, we don't have it, but we're just going to use this guy for now. And we're going to call this raid. And as you can see, and we'll pick our pet too. Remember the bunny that we picked? We want that stat bonus here. So this consists, what I just did though, is this is everything that pretty much is on your character sheet, your preset, right? It consists of your skills, it consists of your accessories and gear, which make up your engravings, but we're using this engraving support system. Hopefully you're following me. Remember I told you your accessories would do that, but now we got this guy here. Remember the nightmare stuff, all of your gear is under this tab, your gem presets, which we talked about, and then your cards and your pet. So by doing this is you can set up a preset for each loadout for different pieces of content that you're doing. So later on, when you go into like a guardian raid, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you can actually have the preset set there. So you go into the Guardian raid with that raid preset that you selected earlier or you set up earlier. You can also do one for like chaos dungeons. We'll just call it Chaos D. And then you can make a chaos dungeon layout here using a guide that you find on Lost Ark Nexus. It will give you all the appropriate skills, and you can go through here and set up something for that specific type of content. So that way, when I do chaos dungeons, I can have a chaos dungeon build and I can enter into that piece of content and then have it automatically load me into my chaos dungeon build. Okay. All right. So I wanted to go over some of the materials that might be flooding your inventory. So in Lost Ark, there is a system called honing, which you're probably familiar with at this point, or you've seen in other games like Black Desert or MapleStory, and it's how you increase your item level. And the entire event revolves around honing. As you increase your item level, you're going to be rewarded with these chests, and these chests will have different types of things in them. Shards, those gems that we talked about earlier. Maybe it has tripods, books that will help you with honing, battle items, a lot of the stuff that we've actually discussed earlier. But in order to reach these item level thresholds, you're going to have to hone. So it gives you stuff to hone, and then as you hone, you get more stuff to hone. I want to go over some of the materials that you'll find in your inventory. So you have things like weapon crystals, you have things like armor crystals, and these are used to either hone armor, so daily protection, or obliteration, weapon. Red for weapon, blue for armor. You're then going to need some of this fusion material called Oreha. This is going to be the bane of your existence. This is going to be probably something that is like the first hurdle and material that you're going to need. This comes from life skilling in the game. It's something that you can farm via life skilling and craft in your stronghold. But you'll need some Oreha whenever you hone. You will then need shards, and I'll walk you through this process. You're probably never going to need the green shards, so don't grab these by accident unless you're not in tier 3, which you probably won't be unless it's like early on in the game. You're going to need most likely these orange shards, so we'll need some of those. And then finally, the last material is called leap stones. These guys right here. Okay, so all of these right here in combination is pretty much what you need to hone. So when you come over to the honing vendor, which is like the big hammer on the map, you will see that you need, again, the armor for the armor pieces and the weapon crystals for the weapon piece, the leap stones that we talked about earlier, the fusion material, and then those shards. So we'll open up some of the shards real quick, and it actually goes into a separate tab that you don't have to track. It goes right over here, and you'll load up the piece with shards first to begin honing it. So you prime the item with the shards, filling up this, and then now you can begin honing, needing the leap stones, the fusion material, and the weapon or armor crystal. So I failed, and now I'm going to uninstall the game. See you guys next time. All right, I know that was a lot of info and honestly a lot of boring info, but again, there are timestamps down below that you can skip ahead. I didn't want to overwhelm you too much, but I did want to do at least a decent job of explaining some of the systems that you will encounter. And like all MMOs, there are a lot of systems. Regardless, maybe you skipped ahead or you've watched all of that. You're now wondering what to do. Okay, well, as mentioned earlier, you have the Hyper Express event, which is going to be your guide through the game. This is kind of one of the major overarching objectives for the event that is currently taking place, but it kind of just simplifies the game in reach this item level, be rewarded with this. So outside of just trying to push your item level, I highly recommend you go do the Arcasia tour to unlock a lot of the other things that will help you just play the game more comfortably or your class more comfortably. Okay, so besides the Arcasia tour, a lot of the game kind of revolves around just several menus. So if you press Alt Q, which the guide quest will tell you to do at some point, this little growth quests, the way that you earn materials in Lost Ark revolve around certain activities. So if you press Alt Q, it will look something like this, and you have Chaos Dungeons, you have Guardian Raids, you have Legion Raids, Abyssal Dungeons, Abyss Raids, Una's Tasks. Honestly, this menu is pretty nice in showing you the recommended content that you can do. The main daily source of content is going to be Chaos Dungeons, which are just kind of like maps from Path of Exile or Diablo Diablo. They're like quick little rifts where you go in, just kill a bunch of monsters, and it's going to give you a lot of these materials, right? Those weapon crystals, armor crystals, shards, and leap stones. And you can do these twice per day. You have 100 total energy, 50 per attempt, and if you miss anything, you can get a rest bonus that will fill up and allow you to kind of get extra materials if you just take some time off. You also have guardian raids, which are going to be the main source of tradable materials. These are like Monster Hunter-esque fights that can be a little bit more challenging depending on if you're new, and these are going to give you those leap stones that you might need depending on where you're at in the game and the same crystal. So these are your dailies that you will do per day to acquire materials that you can use. Okay, the other daily content, right? If you go back to this content guide, these right here, you can see it labeled as daily. Unas are a daily piece of content. Unas, honestly, in my opinion, they kind of stink. I don't like this piece of content. They're very easy to do, but the reason why you do Unas is they give you materials to help you progress your character. You can find guides online of like what Unas to do, what are the most efficient Unas to do. These are just daily quests, but when you complete Unas across your characters, you get points towards this little bar right here. So the more you fill up this bar, the more tokens that you can claim, and you can trade these tokens into your Una token vendor at the gold shop at the top, usually at the top of the town, or depending where you're at, just press M. You can see the little gold icon there, and you will trade in these Una tokens at the vendor for some additional gold. You'll fill up on these tokens, claim them all at the end of the week. This is going to be Tuesday evening, and you can exchange these tokens for gold chests, and that will be a solid source of gold for you early on in the game as a new or returning player. And then you have your weekly content. It's mainly Legion raids and Abyss dungeons as your major weekly content. Legion raids and Abyss dungeons are where a majority of your gold outside of those Una tasks and life skilling, where a majority of your gold will come from. Okay, this is also where you're going to get a lot of your progression materials to progress your character, whether it be Vaulted Horns, Vicus Wings, Clown Trumpets, Triangle Spheres, Brelshaza Horns, and Akan Eyes, so on and so forth. It's going to come from Legion raids. At this point, if you're just super overwhelmed and you're tired of all these menus, you can just hop into some of these earlier pieces of content and now attempt the solo mode version of these. Solo mode is like a introductory version of the raid that might be a little bit easier. Actually, it will be easier than if you were to do the normal mode version, but it does give you additional progression mats similar to normal, and it does give you about 50% of the gold. However, one of the major benefits of doing solo raids is it gives you access to the solo raid vendor, which you also can get for just doing the regular raids. It gives you this currency that will give you a bunch of juice. Okay, it's going to give you a ton of mats that you need that reset weekly, whether it be shard bags, leap stones, armor crystals, books, things like that per character. It will also give you access to gems that you can buy per character, and it will also give you free quality taps that you can use to increase your character's armor quality for free. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So a lot of good stuff comes from the solo raids, as well as additional progression materials like we talked about, the Vicus Wings, the Clown Trumpets. Again, as you go to progress these systems, you're going to need these items, and you can get additional ones from the solo raid vendor. Abyssal dungeons also have solo versions of them. The main endgame ones that players are currently doing, no one really does any of these except for like cards and stuff like that. The main ones that people do now is Triangle at 1540 for solo you can do, and then Voldus at 1600. You're going to need some battle items when entering Lost Ark. You probably have seen these in the past. You're going to need some of these. Battle items are things like potions, grenades, and different items that will help you in battle. In the past, we used to actually store all of these in our inventory, and my inventory would be flooded with just a ton of different grenades and potions. It was so annoying, and I would have to transfer them on different characters. Now what they've done is they've actually moved everything into your battle item inventory. So if you press I, you access your inventory page. You can click on this battle item storage, and I have none here, which you might not have any either. So that's why I was saying open whatever in your product inventory, and you might have a bunch of chests of battle items that will help you do different things in the game. All of them are stored here. Some of the most notable battle items are going to be HP recovery potions. These are limited use, but are used in Guardians and raids and different activities. And then bombs and grenades, most notably whirlwind bombs. Dark grenades are often used. You're going to see things like destruction bombs. These are the more common ones that you will see depending on the fight that you're doing. Later on, when you enter in solo raids, they will probably have a guide on how to do the raid, and it will also tell you what battle items you need to bring. So there's a ton of different battle items that exist in the game, but all of them or many of them have their use cases. Things like flares to find the guardian within the guardian raid, pheromones to prevent the guardian from escaping, things like you may have seen in Monster Hunter and other games also exist in this game. So again, depending on the content you're doing is going to depend on the battle items you're going to bring. And then if you're looking at a guide, it will traditionally tell you what you're going to need. So you may have some chests that look like this. You can grab a couple of the battle items that you might need. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe you need some whirlwind grenades, maybe you need some destruction bombs, and then the remainder you can save in your storage by accessing Alt P. If you press Alt P, you can open up your storage. If you don't have any aura, there is a storage vendor on the mini map. If you aren't able to access it, you can simply go to the vendor over here, storage keep, and you can place your battle item chests here until you need them. You don't have to open them all at once, but you can access them through your storage, open a couple, and then you'll see them here. And then this is going to be across all of your characters. Each character doesn't need its own potions or grenades. It's a storage that's universal across your entire server roster. You also have other side content in the game that will give you additional materials. You have a chaos gate that's up a couple times throughout the day or the week that you can do. This is going to give you some additional shards if you need it. You also have a tower, which is something that you can do to unlock some of those like horizontal pieces, but also additional shards. And then finally, we have the cube, which when you get a cube ticket, you get those from doing chaos dungeons. It will give you access to the cube. The cube has recently been revamped. Now they have combined the previous boss rush content, if you remember that from back in the day, if you played at launch, and cube to make it like a hybrid super cube. And that's going to give you a lot of gems, silver, leap stones, and also additional progression materials. So those pieces of content, again, if you press Alt Q and you just go to the content tab, not the recommended one, it's going to show you some additional pieces of content that you can do, but a lot of people just stick to the recommended tab. So I wouldn't overwhelm yourself too much too early on. I think it's more important to stick to like the bread and butter of the game, and then as you get more comfortable, you can try out different pieces of content. I thought it would also be important to include some of the things that you can kind of do outside of just the regular content in order to farm materials. A lot of the time, players come back to the game and they're just like so focused on finishing out their character's item level, and they lock in really way too much on the Hyper Express event, and they're just so fixated on gaining item level that there are other systems that you can progress. So if you do the Arcadia tour, the whole point of this system is to unlock a lot of these different horizontal rewards that you can access by pressing Alt L, and this will open up all of your collectibles that you would traditionally have to go back and do. But if you complete the Arcadia tour, which is what you should do first, you will get a bunch of these things completed. And then you can then go on and try to act, these are Makoko seeds, these are different collections tabs. You have Omnium stars, a bunch of these different things that will give you those rewards that come from the Arcadia tour. But you also have things like the Adventure Tome. This is basically region or zone completion. And by doing that, you are going to get a lot of skill point potions or character stats and just a bunch of stuff. So first things first is to finish the Arcadia tour, and then if you're done with your like Guardians and Chaos dungeons and you're out of gold for the week, you can kind of work on some of this stuff if you are into that type of stuff. I am not into doing that type of stuff, but if that's something that you enjoy, you can go out and do that in your free time. Another thing that I recommend also on what to do as a new player is going to be life skilling. This is something that I have neglected and still neglect to this day that I really wish I didn't. Life skilling can equal or lead to a ton of extra gold, whether it just be from crafting that Areha fusion material that I talked about earlier, or just selling the raw materials on the auction house. You can make a lot of gold just selling the life skilling materials or crafting them into that fusion material that pretty much everybody needs. I mean, everybody needs fusion material. It goes for a ridiculous amount of gold, and it's, you know, derives or comes from that life skilling material. The more you life skill, the better life skilling tools you're going to get, the more you're going to yield. And then going into tier 4, life skilling is a great way to make gold or save gold. So this is something that I would work on. When you press B, you can see your life skilling energy, and this is like basically how much you can life skill, and then it refreshes every couple of days. There's a ton of guides out there on life skilling, but I did want to include that in the video. If you are out of your chaos dungeons, your guardians, you've done your raids, working on your horizontal, but more importantly, working on your stronghold and your life skilling, I would say is like S tier in terms of importance. You're not going to have a lot of sources of gold as a new or returning player, and one of the things that is super slept on is going to be life skilling. So don't ignore it. Don't be like me. It'll either save you gold or make you a lot of gold, whether it just be from crafting or the actual yielding of life skill materials itself. Okay, if you've made it this far into the video, hallelujah. This segment of the video is going to be aimed at more end game advice or players that are returning to the game. Maybe you take a break during a con, maybe you take a break during Belshazzar, Clown, and you're coming back to the game. You're a little bit more established, or scenario 3 where you already know all of the stuff that I talked about so far and you're a little bit more caught up to speed. You're a new player and you're wondering what you should do or how you should go about the game. What's the best way to approach Lost Ark in 2024, or depending on when you're watching this video. I want to start off by talking about solo raids. So solo mode raids have recently been added to the game. Now, solo mode content, as mentioned earlier, is aimed at solving some of the gatekeeping issues that exist in Lost Ark. And to be honest with you guys, gatekeeping is always going to exist in an MMO when group content is involved and everyone needs to clear said content to receive said reward, right? Not everyone wants to sit there in hours for a new person to learn how to do a piece of content. With that being said, solo mode is also available for players who don't really enjoy playing in a group environment and get random like raid anxiety, or they just don't like feeling like they're a burden to the people that they're playing with. With that being said, solo mode offers a lot of the rewards that you would get from the normal content with less gold. It does give you a decent bit of mats as shown in the solo raid vendor from earlier, but why I want to talk about this is I think a lot of people are very fixated on the rewards themselves, and although I think we're pushing for more additional gold rewards, one thing that I would highly recommend you do, rather than worrying so much about the item level itself and going through this event, is actually going through all of the raids. And why I say this, I have some friends and people that I've seen that are going through the game and they're trying to kind of like go through it rather quickly and go through a lot of the raids and just skipping them and trying to get to like the most current content. The problem with that is, you guys, is a lot of the current content is actually really hard, and I don't think it's going to be a good experience just trying to get to the latest content. As a new player or returning player, it's not that I think you don't have the ability to learn it, it's just that it's going to take you a little bit of time. Like, you can absolutely do it, it's just going to take you a little bit of time to like get used to the game, like how to move your character, what some of the mechanics are, common patterns, and until you get that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So I really recommend just going through a lot of the solo content, whether you get gold from it or not, and just trying to see if you can clear it as close to the item level as possible. And I definitely recommend you check out some guides on Lost Ark Nexus for these solo raids or Maxwell.com so that you can get the info that you need in order to clear it. It will take you some hours, but if you can say that you've gone through a lot of these raids, specifically Clown solo or Belshazzar solo, solo near or close to the solo item level, that's going to be really impressive. So what am I doing as a new player or returning player outside of the solo raids? Well, you don't want to miss your dailies. You want to do your chaos engines. You want to do your guardian raids. You want to then do any type of life skilling that you prefer if you can get into that type of stuff. I highly recommend it. Don't listen to me, guys. I use the cash shop, but you don't want to use the cash shop, right? So I would recommend that you do life skilling because it's just going to be a lot of gold as a returning or a new player. And then, yeah, you have your cube content. You get these tickets. You want to do those. You have your challenge guardian raids. You've seen these in the past. You've been playing the game. These are just like, honestly, it's terrible content, but it gives you some tradable leap stones that can be a decent bit of gold, guys. So doing your challenge guardians, even if you have to match make it, getting these leaps and you can sell them on the auction house. You also have challenge abyssal. These are going to be your main source of cards. But what I would say is you do your chaos, you do your guardian, you do your life scaling, you do your unas, right? So you can claim these tokens right here. And all of that in combination with your solo raids will net you a decent bit of gold. What I would do then is the advice in this game changes a lot. So like at a certain point in the game, I used to give the advice that you shouldn't focus so much on raising a bunch of characters. Why? Well, back in the day when you didn't get free 5x3 engravings and you didn't get free gems, it was quite the investment to raise a character. So the more characters that the game tried to encourage you to make, the more gold that you were going to spend. And because it would cost you a lot of gold, the trade-off for how much return you would get on making that character wasn't really worth it unless you were like in your head mentally playing the game for a super long time. So what I would do is currently in the game, it costs no gold to hone to 1540 item level. Characters under 1540, it doesn't cost any gold. It will cost the Areha fusion material, but you get a lot of that from the event shop if you are using or purchasing the previous tier, not the prime, but the superior. You get a lot of that. Okay. So at this point in the game, I am recommending that you make additional characters. If you can like the idea of trying out new classes, it's great. I would raise up 6 characters to 1540. If you do not have the desire to do that, don't do it. But I would find characters that you want to play and try to raise them up to that no gold cost limit. Once I would do that, then I would focus on raising up a character. So you want to have one main character, but because you have solo raids available to you, doing the solo raids, even if it's a little bit of gold across your characters, is something that I would recommend because you don't have to spend any gold on the accessories. You don't have to spend really any gold on the tripods anymore, and you don't have to spend any gold on the gems. All of that is pretty much free, and to hone the character is essentially free. So that's what I'd recommend currently, is making characters that you want to play and then doing the raid solo to generate some gold income. And then you do the chaos, you do the guardian, you do the unas, you do the life skilling, and in combination I would funnel a lot of that to your main character. Now listen, if you want to use my code at checkout, it's a link in the description. I'm just kidding, there's no code checkout. But for those of you that do want to use the cash shop, what would I buy in the cash shop? Okay, there are only a couple things in this shop that I would buy. This right here is like one of the few things that is just fat value for like 10 bucks. You can get this. It's only available to new players on the original OG classes. Don't know why it's like that in terms of like what classes you can grab it, but it gives you a lot of crystals for like $50 worth of value. Another thing that's pretty decent value is the Ark Pass, the cheapest tier. It gives you a lot of materials that you can use if you're going to play through the game. And I would buy the like cheap tier. Do not buy the skin unless you really want the skin. The last thing is going to be these weekly advanced honing material packs. If you want these, you can get these. It's pretty good value in terms of like everything else in the game. But again, this is if you're like trying to buy stuff. You don't need to. I don't recommend that you buy stuff because you probably don't even know what you need yet in the game, and you don't even know where you're at or what you like. So, but if you are at that point, you know, this is pretty good value. Also, you know, there's card packs and stuff. I mean, that shit's pretty crazy. A lot of cards. That's really expensive, so I don't know about that, but you know what I'm saying. The last thing that I really want to talk about in this video though is that this game, if you haven't figured out, if you have played in the past, is going to be tailored towards a longer term player, someone that likes a like grindier long term game. That's just what this game is. But with the addition of solo raids, it allows you to kind of play more at your own pace. Obviously you're going to progress slower than somebody else that puts in a shitload of hours into the game, but you don't want to play that much anyway, right? You want to play at a more casual pace anyway. So we expect solo raids to release continuously continuing going forward with some of the other raids, and you can kind of play through those at your own pace. And what I would do is I'd simply play around the event shops and the Hyper or Makoko Express events, right? I would use this time to develop out your roster a little bit, hone those characters to 1540 like I mentioned earlier, and then I would lock in on that one character and trying my best to finish the event before September 25th. After September 25th, this is a very casual pace, I would say. Getting to 1600 before September 25th isn't that crazy. I mean, that's pretty slow, but it is what it is. Go through the event, and then following that, we're probably going to get another one for tier 4. After 1, 2, or maybe you played the previous event, 3 total Makoko Express events, you will, in my opinion, have a pretty solid roster if you set it up the way that I have mentioned, right? Focusing on raising up some new characters or some alt characters to 1540, having maybe 1, 2, or 3 characters depending on how many express events that you've gone through at like a 1600 item level. That's going to set you up to kind of fund that one character to 1620 so that you can make it into tier 4 at a decent pace and at your own pace, right? That's really the way that I recommend that you do it. I would use my rested bonus through chaos dungeons. I would use my rested bonus through guardian raids. I would use my rested bonus through Unas, right? And then I would log off and go play other games. You know what I'm saying? That's what I would do. You don't have to listen, like, you don't have to sit here and listen to all the sweat lords that tell you that you need to play so much or all these hours. Honestly, those people are fucking awful. And I mean, I don't care if they shit on me or hate on me for this, guys. They're kind of like, they're like BDO and you don't know if you're gonna keep this in, like BDO Andes. You know what I mean? They're always just annoyed and complaining. I recommend you play the game a little bit more casually. You take it a little bit more chill. You just enjoy the game for what it is and go through the raids, try to learn how to do them and play the game at your own pace. I think you'll be a lot happier doing that. Okay? I think you'll be a lot happier in doing that. Anyways, you guys, I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully that was useful to those of you that are just checking out the game for the first time, or for those of you that are returning to the game after some time away. I'll have links to everything down that I mentioned in the video listed in the description. I know it can be a little overwhelming, but there are timestamps, and I just want to do my best to kind of explain everything in a general sense, so that way you're not taken back by everything all at once. Try to remember, it's just an MMO. You don't have to know all these systems, and over time, a lot of it will make sense. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace! Saunders, don't have this music playing in the background. Find something better, because it's too much. This song sucks. Don't keep this in the video. See, I told you it's going to be a lot to edit, Saunders, you son of a bitch. Better make this edit good, Saunders. Don't put in the Better edit this right, Civo. You got this right, Saunders. Like, you got to make sure, if you have to think, Saunders, like, if I said something, back to the runes section now, Saunders, because we're talking about runes. All right, Saunders, this part's going to go back into the character sheet screen. Don't put that in the video because it's going to be a different event. Who knows? Actually, that, Saunders. We're talking about it at the end of the video because I don't want to talk about it again. It's maxroll.gg. I mean, it, man. Why do we have 2 websites in the first place, Civo? Why do we have Lost Ark Nexus, the hub, and maxroll.gg? I never explained Adventure Tome. Oh, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back.